So, is this an awesome sounding synth? Yep. Am I gonna buy it? Probably not. Well, not right now anyway. What's up, boys and girls? C Lopez back once again with another tutorialism, and today I'm going to be looking at BX Oberhausen by Brainworx from Plugin Alliance. Now this is their software emulation of the SEM by Oberheim. I'm going to start off with a general overview of its features, and then I'm going to put it in the context of a track, and then I'm going to have a go at making my own patch. So on the surface of it, it's a pretty simple synthesizer. We have two oscillators, VCO1, VCO2, we have a filter section, two envelopes, two LFOs. At the top we have an arpeggiator section, an effects section, and a modulation matrix. So I believe the original SEM module was a monophonic synthesizer, which means you can only play one note at a time. If we click this switch to unison, we can control how many voices of unison are being played by moving this controller along here. So on and so forth. If we take unison off, this controls the polyphony of the synthesizer. So the first interesting feature I want to look at is this TMT switch here. So TMT is Brainworx patent-pending tolerance modeling technology, originally found in their BX console line of plugins. It takes real-world tolerances of audio components found in audio circuits into account and offers voices of the synthesizer which have realistic variances in frequency, time constants, etc. The result is a digital synthesizer that sounds as analog as possible. So like I said before, I believe the original SEM was a monophonic synthesizer. So back in the day, if you wanted to play chords with this synthesizer, you'd have to buy more than one of the modules, daisy chain them together, run those all through a sequencer, and have the sequencer send different notes of the chords to each of the different synthesizers in the daisy chain. So one of the interesting side effects of running synthesizers in daisy chain would come from the LFO. Now we can see the LFO on this synthesizer is free running, meaning it's not synced to the tempo of the host. So when you've got multiple synthesizers running, all of those LFOs would be running at a slightly different rate. So let's demonstrate that using this plugin. So if I turn TMT off, it's going to act like a regular LFO on any software synthesizer. So let's turn up the modulation amount for VCO1. Let's switch it so that the LFO1 is controlling the modulation, and let's have a listen to what that sounds like. So it sounds just as you would expect it to. If we switch TMT on, let's have a listen to what happens. So what that's basically doing is it's setting a different LFO for each of the notes in the chord. Now if I make that a little bit less drastic, we can hear what kind of use that can have in making a sound rich and thick. So let's turn the modulation amount down just a little bit. And let's have a listen to that with TMT off. And on. So you can hear the sounds a lot more rich, a lot more interesting, and a kind of a lot thicker. Another interesting feature of this synth is the envelope section. As you can see, we only have attack, decay, and sustain. We don't have a release. In this case, the decay acts as the sustain and the release. So if I set the amount here to 1.3 seconds, that means the decay time is going to be 1.3 seconds and the release time is going to be 1.3 seconds. So let's turn the sustain down and have a listen to that in action. Cool. So each oscillator can either be a saw wave or a pulse wave. turn the sustain back up. And if we have it at 12 o'clock, it's not going to play either, it's just going to be silent. So as we move it to the left, we're increasing the volume of the saw, and as we move it to the right, increasing the volume of the pulse. Let's have a quick listen to the pulse in action. We can change the pulse width by using this dial here. And we can change the stereo spread by moving this dial up here. So let's move this down to a saw, and let's put VCO2 into pulse. And let's have a listen to the filter. Turn up the resonance. And let's modulate the frequency with envelope 2. Let's turn the modulation off for now, and let's have a look at the different filter types. We have bandpass, and low pass, and high pass. Now this is a state variable filter, which means we can switch between high pass and low pass using this dial. This being plugin alliance, we've obviously got mid-side processing capabilities. If we move this all the way down here, the filter is just going to control the mids, and if we move it all the way to the other side, it's just going to control the sides. And if we have it at 12 o'clock, it's going to filter out both the mid and side information. In the effects section at the top here, we can see, if you're familiar with Plugin Alliance's other plugins, that we have little bits of some of their plugins included in the effects section. So I really like this blue chorus here. Now if you have a look at my CPU meter here, you can see how much processing power this synth is taking up. This is literally the only thing I've got on this project, one instance of this playing one chord, and it's taken up half my CPU already. So just for comparison, if I open up another project that I'm working on, yeah, right now we can see that the CPU is spiking, but I think that's because of the screen recording software. But if I open up the VST section, we can see how many plugins I'm actually using, how many instances of Omnisphere, Trillion, Halion, all this kind of stuff I've got going on. And yeah, believe me, this is playable. Obviously not right now. And if I go into the mixer, we can see how many plugins I've also got loaded up in the project here. So just for comparison of what kind of machine I'm working on and what I'm able to run in other projects. Okay, so let's have a quick listen to this demo track I've knocked up. I've got 5 instances of Oberhausen running in this Cubase session here. I've actually got the drums running through Ableton Lite, being controlled by the push. There's also some vocals that are coming out of Ableton as well. Okay, so all those sounds are presets from the VST. I've never actually used the original SEM, but you can hear straight away that all these sounds are like really familiar, and you know fine well that you've heard that SEM in lots and lots of tracks and soundtracks and stuff before. Okay, so let's have a listen to these individual sounds. So let's start off with this Unibass. So all these modulation curves here, these are actually from the mod wheel, and these are modulations that are already included in the presets, so I just wanted to show those off just for the demo. So let's just play this section that is being modulated, and let's have a look at this Unibass. And then we have the analog piano. Next up we have this Steamroller BS preset. Then we have this Weeping Dream. Cool. And finally, we just have the initialize preset down at the bottom here. So I'm going to use this, and I'm going to try and come up with some kind of patch that will fit in this track. So I'm not going to talk through this section. I've already given you a brief overview of how the synthesizer works, so hopefully you should be able to follow along. I'm going to mute this Weeping Dream lead as well. Let's open this up. So yeah, before we start this, I just want to say that my sound design capabilities are really bad, but it should give you an indication of how easy it is to dial something into this synthesizer, or not, as the case may be. So we can see how much this has overloaded my CPU here, so I'm going to turn the voices down to 4. So as you can hear, it's a really vibey synthesizer. It's really nice and thick, really awesome sounding. So why at the beginning of this did I say I'm probably not going to buy it? Well, the first issue is the CPU usage. As you can see, I've got 5 instances running here, but to get that working in my project, I actually had to set my buffer size to 248, which means that there's a massive latency between playing anything on the keyboard and any sound coming out. So at this stage of the project, when you're sequencing, when you're composing, it's not really viable. You can only really have one of these synths going at a time. So if we compare this to how many instances of Omnisphere, for example, I can have running in my project, you can see it's quite a big difference. Okay, so I am a massive Plugin Alliance fanboy. I've got loads of their plugins. So this, for example, the BX Console SSL 4000G, I use this on every single channel. I've got it set up by default just to come up on every single channel because I love it so much. I also have this Black Box, which is a mastering grade saturation plugin. I don't just use it on the master channel, I use it on all kinds of things. I absolutely love this thing. And this Metric AB, which is a referencing plugin. I don't know how I live without this thing. This thing is awesome. I have to say that not all of their plugins are amazing. This Vertigo VSM3, I just can't seem to get a good sound out of this thing. The GUI is tiny, impossible to use. So yeah, they're not perfect, but overall they are an amazing plugin company. So my problem with them, and the reason why I'm probably not going to buy this synthesizer just now, is the pricing scheme by Plugin Alliance. So you can see here that the BX Console SSL 4000G, $349. Now, there's no way I paid any more than $100 for this plugin, probably about $50 if I'm being honest. We can also see that that Black Box thing, $249. Again, I doubt I would have paid more than $50 for that. The reason for that is Plugin Alliance, they run these sales kind of all year round, kind of 1 week on, 1 week off. So maybe probably less than that. But the point is, for about 3 or 4 months out of the year, these plugins are priced really low, and the rest of the time they're priced really high. So right now, this new synthesizer, if I can find it on the website here, doesn't actually have a price. It's just in kind of a demo mode now, I guess. And looking at their other synthesizer they've got for sale, it looks like the price of this is going to be about $200, $300. Now, I'm not saying in itself that Oberhausen isn't worth that amount of money. The problem is, why would I pay that amount of money when I know fine well that later on in the year it's going to come down in price? So yeah, my overall verdict is it's an awesome sounding plugin. Really, really cool sound, really vibey, but chances are it's going to be priced really high. So my advice is just to wait off till like Christmas time or Black Friday, pick it up then. Alright, this is C. Lopez, Tutorialism, peace.